This is your opinion.
Hello, team. Welcome back to another episode of Record Breakers. With Darcy's thrown me in the deep end here.
You've caught us in the middle of an argument here.
Yeah, it's good fun. So he said, hit record and let's get this show on the road. So welcome back. If you're a first-time listener, we do this every week. We hang out with a bunch of salespeople live on a show, and then of course we publish it on the Bigger Game podcast as well, which is good fun. So welcome back. My name's Steve Clayton. I'm here with my best mate and business partner, Darcy J. Smythe. We're the co-founders of the Outbound Game, and of course the Record Breakers show is brought to you by outbound.game. So feel free to check that out if you've got a sales team and you want to motivate them. So Das, the question was?
The question was this. Recently, Diff and I on a podcast, the Bigger Game podcast, we were having the conversation between the difference between writing your emails in a way that gets responses, even though it's never grammatically correct. The way I write emails is it would fail an English test before you even got to the fourth line.
Yeah.
Versus writing emails with proper English and getting it all grammatically correct, even though that might not get you the response you want as a marketer or as a salesperson.
Yeah.
I said, where do you sit on this? And Diff has just said, geez, easy when I can't talk here, boys. And then his name is Gray. So I think he's actually left the webinar, which is great.
That's great.
Yes. So where do you sit? And you said, well, I sit on the fence.
Yes,
and I won't allow fence unless you can justify it somehow. But
okay, in the world of sales and marketing, I think writing persuasively, writing in a way that influences the reader, writing in a way where the recipient feels emotion or can be injected into a story matters way more than a comma and a semicolon and the correct spacing. It just does.
There we go.
Just does. But on that, I do have a caveat. Like you got to spell words correctly, right? Like, and you got to
fair. But
like
I've never misspelled a word.
Yeah,
not intentionally.
Right. Yeah.
Not in order to get a result.
But here's where I'll add my tidbit to it. I write emails as if they are like, now this is going to sound wanky, but don't hear it as being wanky. Like I write them as if I would write songs.
Yeah.
So I'm very aware of the visual spacing. Pretty much you'll notice all of my emails are essentially no more than 3 lines long, no matter what they are. I'll always do a page break there, almost like when you're writing a verse of a song, it's always kind of like 4 lines because it needs to meet the beat.
Yes.
And so that's what I'm interested in. I use a lot of like storytelling. I use a lot of metaphor. I use a lot of weird adjectives so that it naturally causes the reader to be like, oh, that's a different way of saying that, but it means the same thing. You know what I mean?
So what I'm hearing here, Steve, is if you had to get off the fence and fall onto one side, you'd fall onto mine over Diff's.
Yeah, 100% all day.
Yeah.
Sucked in Diff.
Take that, Diff.
Yeah. But what Diff hates is your incomplete sentences. So
can you have Diff? Your own damn books. Shout out to Diff. He is currently editing our book, The Arcade Effect. Diff, please give me an example of an incomplete sentence. I'm not too sure what you...
Okay, we need to bring him on the show. This is just going to be too much. Otherwise,
this is
in text. But team, welcome back. Hope you had a great Easter, by the way. So let's
happy Easter all.
Promote Diff to panelist. I'm not sure if this is going to work or not, Diff, and allow to talk. Welcome back to the show, Diff.
Welcome to the ring.
He might not have a camera, but he might have audio.
Not. Yeah.
So.
There he is. We had him.
There we go.
There he is.
Here he is.
I don't have a proper mic, so I don't know how my mic's going to go. Look, just give me 2 seconds and I'll go and check the most recent email you sent and I'll find an incomplete sentence. Okay,
great. Yeah, that'd be awesome. All right. Thank you, mate.
Yeah, we're doing, maybe it could be a new segment of the show at some point. Could be a new segment of the show at some point, like critiquing your sales emails live. Actually, let us know, team. That would be fun. We get Diff to critique your sales emails live, but from a professor's point of view.
And you really rile him up. Really get him pissed off.
It's the first sentence. Here we go.
All right, here we go.
Now look, I don't know if everyone wants to hear this, so I'll say this and then I'll get you boys can take back over again. It's fine. But this is not how you use an ellipsis. Ever started a new quarter full of energy, ... new line, capital O, only to come tumbling back down a mere 2 weeks later all over again. Okay, where to begin? That second sentence is not a sentence. If you read that sentence by itself, it doesn't have all of the prerequisites to be a sentence. Only to come tumbling back down a mere 2 weeks later all over again needs It's a dependent clause.
Please put it in the
dependent on
chat.
the previous
Ever done that,
clause.
anyone? Ever had that experience? And when you have that experience, the way you speak to yourself in your own mind, does it have perfect grammar? Or is it like, do I ever? Actually, I have done that. There we go. That's our marketing email.
The reason to
Kick him
care,
out here, Steve.
the reason to care is because you want to avoid ambiguity. And ambiguity is a killer. Now, generally speaking, in sales,
a killer of what? A killer of what?
Yeah, incomplete sentence, Steve.
Of communicating meaning. No, that was a complete sentence. Oh my, this is hard. I got grade 10s that could get this easier than you two. The point, I am an English teacher, Travis. This is my job. Point is this, and I'll just leave it very clear, right? Ambiguity is not a problem in a sales email, and that's why I never edit your sales emails, and it's not what we were talking about. I was talking about LinkedIn posts with real obvious errors. Not like this is my style, unless your style is a piece of crap and you don't know how to write properly. Then that's different. But I'm not talking about stylistic, because that's kind of like poetry, and poetry can break the rules of things, and that's totally okay. But if you're writing something in LinkedIn, my whole point was I want to deal with people that could be asked doing a bit of a spell check before they hit post. That was the point that I was making. But for your emails, that's why I don't draft them, because I couldn't. I wouldn't even know where to begin. Right?
I wouldn't ask you to. I wouldn't do it to you.
We wouldn't do it. We love you too much.
So your emails work perfectly. I got no problem with them. I just don't personally read them, and I'll leave it back to you boys.
Thank you very much, mate. Appreciate it, Div.
See you guys.
That was a great segment.
Okay, great segment. We'll bring it back every few weeks. That's
Dr. Diff comes back.
Dr. Diff. Dr. Diff.
Yeah,
so send in your sales emails to steve@ybravo.com or darcy@ybravo.com, and we might bring them up in a future show.
That'd be worth it. Do you know what's so funny is, and I hope Diff can hear this, is like, you've got those podcasts like Hamish and Andy do it, where they take the absolute piss out of Jack Post, who's like the dumb one out of the three.
Yeah.
Ricky Gervais takes the piss out of Carl Pilkington, who's the dumb one out of the three. It's funny that we get Diff on the podcast to take the piss out of us. He's the smart one out of the three, and we're the two dickheads. It's great.
People can only handle a tiny little bit of like just the pretentiousness of someone like me. So, a little flavor every couple of weeks will be enough.
Sprinkle.
Good.
Exactly.
Good.
Team, are you ready? Are you ready for this? This is going to be huge. I don't know if you're ready for this, team, but team, welcome to.
Oh, how good is this?
Welcome to Record Breakers. We're back. We have got some music. Guys, if that doesn't get you fired up on a Tuesday morning, I don't know what will.
Mate, well done. Well done to you.
We've got some sound effects, and for each little segment here as we go, so good fun.
Wait, can we pause? Can we pause the music now?
Oh yeah, we can turn it off whenever we want. It's gone.
Oh, great. There we go. Yeah. It's like segment thing, but well done to you, because you did make the promise.
I made the promise.
Yes.
And I think I've got some self-awareness now that when I make public promises, I have to come through. Shout out to Dan Beck for the 8-bit soundtrack suggestion. Dan. It's a good one. But Das, for those that don't know us, we've been rambling on here. We will get into some gold for you shortly. But Das, mate, you love the Kit Kats.
Obsessed.
But you have professed, and you've publicly professed, and in many social outings, that you were the first guy to discover that Kit Kats taste infinitely better when they're in the freezer.
Yes. And discovered that by accident. Was the first person to discover it, first person to discover it by accident, and the first person to say that I discovered it by accident and also discovered it.
Yeah. So you can see how it rolls, team. He just won't let it go. But welcome to the show, Das.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate you having me. And this is the thing is, I was amazed when I discovered that, because Kit Kats to me are the greatest thing that's ever been invented. A close second maybe is Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon, which we've discussed at length many times. But when I discovered that I actually took it out of the freezer, I don't know why I took it out of the freezer. We must have had like a boatload of them, and just they were the only place that it fit in the fridge. Took it out of the freezer, chomped down on it, and
snap.
And that snap, just an extra 5% on what was always there before was, man, it was something else. Yeah, it blew me away. Yeah,
I'll back it. So one day we'll be sponsored by Kit Kat.
Oh, imagine, team. I am joined by Steve Clayton, a man who I've worked side by side over the last 2 to 3 years building a software program called Outbound. We've invested a ton of time, a ton of money, a ton of our energy and resources Also, all to the point that Steve could actually force his kids to do chores for him. Often we are doing a lot of client calls, and we'll see Alyssa and Nora, his two girls, come in with a coffee for dad and a little piece of toast for dad and whatever it is. And I know deep down that at the back of it, they're getting 13 coins a pop every time they do it, but it works a treat.
Yeah, they're playing the pocket money game. And look, I don't mind it at all. So it's not just about sales, team. Sales is life. But let's get into it. Round one, team. Here it is. This one is going to be question of the day. Obviously, a big part of sales is always going to be about what questions you're going to ask. So let's dive straight in. We've got two for you today. One of them is what we call the future pace, F-pace. And future pacing is essentially this idea of if you can cast your buyer forward into the future at a point in time, you paint the picture that it will be great, it'll be successful, it'll be lovely. Really, you can future pace someone anywhere. It doesn't need to be that. But in sales, if you can future pace someone into a better state, a better world in the future together, it's really interesting what happens psychologically. And you might be able to speak to this, Das. But what I've found personally from having conversations that are future-based, future-paced, is that it normally creates a lot of momentum in the conversation. It normally creates a lot of like, well, this would have to happen, then that, then that, then that, which naturally takes them on this kind of confirmation journey in their mind that this makes sense to move forward. But what's going on there, Das, when you take someone through this question, and here it is. Hey, Das, say we got to the end of this project together. Now, it doesn't need to be a project. It can be partnership, insert whatever you want there. Hey, Das, say we got to the end of this together and it was as successful as it could be. Everything was ticked. Everything was nailed. Couldn't be happier. Hey, mate, what would that look like for you?
Yeah, the reason that works is because the words that you've selected at the end there, what would that look like? Look is a very visual word. And a large, I'm going to say above 70% of the population involve some sort of visual cue when making decisions. Another way of saying that, around about 70% plus people, whenever they need to make a decision or they need to, whenever there's anything they're working through, they'll actually have images in their mind that they're using. So if I said to you, how was yesterday? Well, you could tell me yesterday was good, but you don't have to picture an image. But if I said to you, how was yesterday? Over 70% of people will picture what they did yesterday and then answer the question. They'll picture it as an image.
Yeah, true.
Okay?
I did that, yeah.
Yeah. So when we say we got to the end of the project together, what would it look like if this were a success? People then imagine that picture in their mind of a successful project. And once they've imagined that and had the visual of that, it's actually very hard to let go of because it feels good to imagine it being done. Once the mind has imagined it, it actually doesn't know the difference between something that's imagined and something that's real, which is so fascinating. If you're thinking about it right now, as far as the brain's concerned, it's actually happening. It's so fascinating, right? So once it's actually happening, if you take that away from the brain, it doesn't like it because it's like, no, I worked so hard and completed that, and now you're taking it away. Brain doesn't know that you haven't put in the 6.5 years to actually complete it yet.
Got it.
So once you future pace someone, it's very painful to undo that future pace by not working with you moving forward. Like, no, we've already begun the journey. I can see it happening. Let's continue it. This is why it works so well.
I love it, mate. It's so it's a powerful question. Why I like asking these type of future pace based questions, so tongue twister, is it reveals to me what I need to focus on, what I need to highlight, what I need to provide for the client. Because let's say you answered it, Das, and let's say, I don't know, we're selling websites because everyone's got a website, right? And I said, Das, blah, 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 success. What would that look like in the future? And what might that process look like for you? You might answer, give us 3 dot points.
It's up, and I love the look of it. It's generating traffic.
Nice.
And that traffic is converting to opt-ins.
Beautiful, right? So really you got 3 high-level dot points that we could drill into to position myself to be the very best service provider, because it's not just about how pretty it looks. Das is also interested in conversion, in top of funnel, how we're actually going to drive traffic to the thing. So if I'm competing against, Steve-Oss websites, and he's just like all about the aesthetics, man, it's going to be beautiful and you'll love it. And I got this really cool widget that spins around. and he never speaks to Das about top of funnel conversion, all of that type of stuff, Das is naturally going to go, there's something missing here. He hasn't got me yet. Right?
And it requires me to fill in the dots myself. It requires me, the buyer, to go, okay, so if it's got a cool spinning widget, does that help me land leads? Does it? And now I'm confused, so I'm not going to buy, even in a state of confusion.
Yeah, 100%. Right. So there's a really direct way of asking that, because this is a long-winded way of, one, getting Das to have the psychological experience, not Das, anyone you're having this conversation with, to have the psychological experience of the future being bright. And that's ultimately what we all want. We want to look forward to a bright future. We get the gold from their response so that we know what to provide for them. That's sales 101. That's business 101. That's entrepreneurship 101. The direct way to do it is, hey, Das, what do you want from us? And you can ask it in just a matter of a few words. So there's a few different ways you can approach this. Hence, we wanted to give you both in round one.
How good's that, Steve? That direct question is so simple, yet the answer that would come back would be so profound. Like if I said to you, Steve, at the end of the day, what do you want from us? What do you want? You'd pretty quickly tell me, like, Das, I just want a website that converts, mate. That's what this all boils down to at the end of the day. Great. Okay, let's look at that. And now you future pace yourself.
Yeah, you normally get 1, 2, or 3 dot points. And if they're stuck at the end of that question, like let's say you tried on today, and you literally could, you could try that direct question. We could try both those questions immediately, right? On your next sales call. Hey, curious, what do you want from us? You normally find, even if they're stuck, like just tell them, like give us like 1, 2, 3 dot points. Whatever they give you as those 1, 2, 3 dot points, it's pretty much all you need to convert. There's this sales philosophy out there called the one. And it's this idea that when you boil motivation down and you boil it 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 down, normally the reason you're doing a thing is because of one thing. It's just one. And in sales, we try and do, and then you get the kitchen steak knives, and then you get the blah, and we're just trying like more. Nah, most of it's actually getting to the one. Like, what's the real one? What's the actual point? So, I've said this quote a million times, but it's a classic. The late J. Piermont Sr. once said, a man generally has 2 reasons for doing a thing, one that sounds good and the real one.
Love that.
And that's
Do you
it.
think, Steve,
that's
if I was having a sales conversation with you and I'm selling you a website, and I got to the core of the reason why you want to buy, what that one thing actually is, and you verbalize that to me, I reckon I could sell you the website without ever talking about the features and benefits of my service, because 100%. I got to a point in the conversation with you where you actually shared what was really going on.
100%.
From that point forward, you will buy.
Well, this flows on from that philosophy of the one, right? When you recognize the one, you also realize that precise moment when both of you realize that you both get the one, that's the moment the sale takes place. This is why salespeople talk themselves into a deal and then talk themselves back out of it again. They don't recognize that that's the actual moment when the deal goes, aha.
Yes.
Now it's just about not stuffing it up.
That's really good. And how annoying is it when you're speaking with someone? Like once you've got the point, they keep talking. I got it 5 minutes ago. Like now you're just repeating yourself.
Nah.
That's
like they've scratched the itch and then they've started going elsewhere. You're like, no, get back there.
No, they scratch the itch and then they just keep scratching, lad. Like, I'm bleeding, bro. You gotta stop, man.
Stop. I've had enough. So that's round 1, team. Hope you enjoyed. Let us know in the feedback. What'd you learn? It's great. Das. Round 2.
Beautiful.
Here comes the psycho.
Yes, fantastic.
This music gets you amped.
It does. For each section, how did we ever run this webinar? /podcast for those of you listening on the podcast without the music, Steve? That's the question.
I don't know how we did it.
Question here, team. This music, says Josh. Josh, don't knock the music, mate. Like this is as good as it gets. Yeah. This is why we're happy.
We're happy to lose listeners over this music.
If we lose you as a listener due to the music, you were not meant to be on this webinar from the start, man. Okay, here comes the psycho team. New quarters won't solve the same old fears. What we mean by this, team, is we work with sales teams at the start of things a lot. Meaning a lot of times sales leaders will come to us and say, hey, it's the start of a new year. It's the start of a new financial year. It's the start of a new quarter. Hey, we've got a new month starting. This is when I really want to implement something and get things going. Something in us in our minds, I don't know why it happens. I haven't done my research around it, but something in us loves this idea of a fresh start because we believe that something to do with a fresh start relating to time means things are going to be different for us now moving forward. As you will have seen in my beautifully written and perfectly composed email this morning, according to English grammar, you will have seen that this can happen in New Year's resolutions. This can happen at the start of new quarters in sales. This can happen in conversations that you may have with a partner or a friend where you're like, okay, now that things are new, I promise it will be different.
Milestone birthdays.
Milestone birthdays, isn't it a ripper? Now, here's the thing, team. Please write this down if you're taking notes or you're pretending to take notes in order to look good in front of your boss right now because you're sitting in a room together and you want to make it look like you're actually listening.
Hey, shout out as well. Put it in the chat if you are listening to this as a team. Just
yeah. We do have plenty of teams around listening. This is cool. This is the note you want to take, which is this. The calendar doesn't care about your goals, right? The calendar doesn't care about your goals. What I mean by that is this. Your goals don't know the difference between 11:59 p.m. on Tuesday and now 12 o'clock a.m. on Wednesday. Time doesn't care. As far as time's concerned, you're still the exact same person setting the same old goals with the same old fears that are going to come and trip you up this February, just like they did last February. And the idea is that human beings at the end of the day take a lot in order to actually change. They really do. I've done a lot of work one-on-one with people over the years. And it is one thing that I've really come to understand about people is that people can change. I do believe they can. There's no point having these conversations if we don't believe that. But I think that what it takes to change is often a lot greater or a lot more intense than people would rather know.
Yeah.
So people would like to think that because it's now 2023 instead of 2022, I'm going to be a better sales leader. I'm not going to do that thing anymore. I'm going to change that habit. Or because it's a new quarter, hey, forget old quarters. This quarter, this is the one for us. We're going to be fine. And you're still the same people this quarter as you were last quarter. The same patterns are going to show up. I don't believe you're a reflection of the things that you have done. Everyone's made mistakes in the past. Everyone's stuffed up. I do believe, though, you are a reflection of the patterns that you continue to portray. And you are patterns over and over again. In order to break those patterns, you need to get down to the nitty-gritty of what creates them, which is your habits, okay? Now, breaking habits can only be done in two ways that I have discovered. Actually, I'll go with three, actually, to be fair to it. And I'll be interested in your thoughts, Steve, because I'll pass off to you for the thing on the left here that we want to uncover, which is this. Three ways that habits can actually break. The first way is through genuine ultimate action, meaning you stick to a course day in, day out, aiming to actually hit the hammer on the nail, Steve, and just change that habit day in, day out. Outbound is phenomenal for this. I don't know about you, but I've never exercised more in my life once I've actually 100%. Gamified the habit, okay? Second one is some sort of trauma or intense loss or intense pain that causes you to overnight say, I am never doing that thing again. I was talking to a friend the other day and he's like, oh yeah, I was DJing on my decks and I just, I had my kid sitting in the corner. And I just thought I'll have some time by myself. I'll DJ on the decks and I'll have a bit of fun, create a bit of music. Might get him to create a bit of new music for this. Yeah,
let's do that.
Yeah. But he goes, my son started choking on some batteries. And he's like, I picked up my son and he was starting to turn blue and I'm bashing his back to get the batteries out. And he eventually did. The kid was okay. And he said, from that day forward, I said to myself, I'm either watching my kid or I'm doing what I'm doing, like, on my phone or music or whatever. I'm not doing both at the same time ever again. And he hasn't since that day. And that was over a year ago. He's like, that trauma of that moment, thinking I just lost my son, not worth it. So that's it. And the third, Steve, and I'd be interested in yours, is actually the opposite of trauma. Can sometimes be brought on by trauma, but doesn't necessarily have to be, which I believe is some sort of, and we're going to get a bit woo-woo here, but some sort of like high level of spiritual awakening of sorts. I think people can actually have experiences where they're like, I don't know, something just opened itself up to me and I saw the world in a whole new way. And I don't even need to try to change that habit anymore. I just don't feel like drinking at all anymore. Or I haven't smoked in years, or I haven't been afraid of a sales call ever since I had that incredible experience, something like that. So, and I don't have any science around that. So I don't think you're meant to have science around that. So yeah, those are the three ways. But day-to-day team, seeing as we're not all of us today aren't necessarily going through some massive trauma or having some massive spiritual awakening. What we're left to work with in the middle is the changing of habits day by day, which works really well.
Yeah, 100%. So it's a cool idea. It's essentially this philosophy of process, right? Essentially, all we're talking about here is process change. Now, it's a kind of pretty clinical way of saying it, but it can be really enlightening and it can be really inspirational as well. But that's really what we're talking about here. And it's this idea, and it's a pretty complete model. It's the idea that you need to receive something, then you digest something, and then you do something. And ultimately, most people experience life in that way. You receive something, you digest on it, and then it ultimately makes you do something. And that's the process of change. But we get stuck in each part of that journey. You can even apply this to a sales conversation, right? We need to receive both ways, whether that's problems and the solutions that they need, an understanding of who they are and what they're ultimately trying to achieve. You know, we need to receive both ways. Both of us need to digest that. So I need to understand you, you need to understand me. And then ultimately we want to do something together. That's the point of the conversation, right? And you can even identify where you're getting stuck by that way. But ultimately where it ties together is, and this is a philosophical approach. And again, I think this is where, Das, when you're talking about number 3 of habit change, some form of transcendence, I think it's by meditating on these 3 things. What is it, if you were to think about your purpose, what is it, what's something to do? Where do you want to spend your time? Work seems to be ingrained into humans, and we like work. Work is good for us, particularly if we find the works that are aligned to our giftings, talents, and ultimately purpose. What is it that I have to do? What is something to do? Which takes us to a creative process, which is what is something to build. I believe humans are creative at their core, so we're always seeking to build something. And so when you can start to understand, okay, well, how do I align my work with my building, or the something to do with the something to build, which ultimately allows us to achieve something or go through a process of something, which allows us to do something, which allows us to be something. And that's ultimately what we're looking for as, self-awareness, self-acceptance, to a point where, hey, I can be myself in this, but I also am someone in this. I'm something to be.
Nice,
So,
I love it.
plenty of good books here. Better Than Change, Diff was saying, for habit change. Atomic Habits is obviously a really great book on this as well.
Nice.
Which is love it. Round 3, Das, final home team. We're coming into the...
Oh, that was a new note. You hear that one?
Yeah, so
I don't find it.
Because we're coming into the final round, Das. Quick little story time. We're going to fly through this. This is a way that you can personalize all of that we've just spoken about today. And this is the idea that human beings are more than just the work that they do. Often their work is also deeply linked with family. And so if you can introduce family into what it is that you're doing, but also introduce family into the conversations that you're having with people, you'll get to a way deeper level with them, both in a relationship, but also an understanding. So one thing does, the Outbound game, obviously the gamification platform, we heard of a great story a couple of months ago where a guy actually put into his reward store. So for those that don't know, the Outbound game, you get rewarded with coins every time you take proactive activity, and you unlock bonus multipliers when you complete your missions, which is, your KPIs or your KPAs, and you get to customize them. Once you're ahead of your targets, you go convert these coins in the reward store for whatever you want, whether it's guitars or time off or money or whatever. He ended up having a chat with his wife, and the wife loves a bit of shopping and, enjoys these types of things, but they didn't have the money for a lot of this. So he ended up putting credit card money or credit card points in the reward store. So every time that he was doing outbound activity in his sales job, he was earning coins for the credit card so that the missus was happy. Crazily enough, well played. Crazily enough, you should have seen the amount of support and the amount of drive that he got from the misso when that kind of closed loop system was happening.
Yeah, nice.
Pretty powerful. If you think about your own work today, gentlemen, I know a lot of our audience is males, so I'll speak to the dudes for a while. If you have a partner or if you have a family, I guarantee you're dictating some of your work today based on your family and what you want to achieve for them. So if you can connect those 2 dots, you're going to see motivation. Number 2, involve the kids, because kids don't lie. when I was working for Volkswagen, I remember, I'll never forget this story. I was taking a Volkswagen Golf out with this lady, a man. He was a truck driver. She was a stay-at-home mum. And Billy, the kid, one only child, he's probably about 10 or something beside me. We've been going out for this test drive for about 20 minutes. And these two people buying the car were so stoic. They're like, yeah, we're just checking it all out. Yeah, we're not sure. No, non-committal, very like defensive, wouldn't open up. This is going on for about 20 minutes. So I'm like, okay, cool. That's sweet. Fair enough. Got to respect where they're at. And I turn to Billy and I go, so Billy, what do you reckon? What do you think about it? And he goes, well, Steve, mum's been wanting a Volkswagen Golf for years and dad's been saving up for it. And we've finally got enough money. And so mum's so excited. And of course, mum and dad look at each other. They crack up laughing. We all crack up laughing. And all I had to say was one line. Well, we better take care of mum then, hey.
Yeah, that's great.
And the deal was closed. The deal was closed in that 1 second. And again, because kids don't play sales games. So involve the kids team. Fun little stories.
Unreal. Love that.
Love it,
good, Steve. Hey, bit of an
update
on the final boss. We've changed it to swings and hits rather than fouls and wins, largely because our ego hurts. That's really the only reason. No, we wanted to change to swings because we are planting seeds with each of these companies that we're bringing up. So, Steve, we did have we had our swings on the Spurs. They are out there in the world happening as we speak. We're starting to get some bites on McLaren F1, which is awesome to see.
Yep.
Current major player that we're working with at the moment and looking to get on board with is SAP. SAP are the 75th biggest company in the world. And what are they, Steve? I think, what are they worth? Like 155 billion or something like that?
Yeah.
Can't remember. But anyway,
vicinity.
We do have a bit of a conversation happening with SAP at the moment for some pretty exciting things happening. So we're going to go deep on the SAP train this week. And we're going to, we have our main contacts there, but we're going to start probably spreading that contact network just because the more we know, Steve, in terms of people. Yeah. So the more that we know the people, the more that those people will spread to other people. So that's going to be our big one for this week.
Exciting times. And of course, team, we're still running the jackpot giveaway. If you are using the Outbound game and you want to give us a testimonial about the awesome experience that you've had, I don't know if Diff or yourself, Das, can find the Typeform link, chuck it in there. You get one entry to win a brand new 13-inch MacBook Pro by giving us a written testimonial.
Yep, I've got it.
And you also get 25 additional entries if you can record a video for us. It can be on Vidyard or just off your phone, and whatever's easy for you. It doesn't need to be polished. It doesn't need to be perfect. We just want to hear from you. So that's we're giving that away. So make sure you join that entry. Love it for those that have already in it. Pretty good odds to win. And team, we've also launched a brand new website, outbound.game, which is rad. Go check it out. We've got heaps of great articles in there. We've launched what we've called the Outbound University. We've got all of our pricing up there now. We've got an overview video. It's just a really, really cool website. So feel free to go check that out. And of course, we've also launched our automation feature in the platform, Das, which is huge.
Yeah,
we can now set up any game, any goal, any budget in like 3 minutes. It used to be a 45-minute process. The algorithms now all built into the platform. It's so much easier to use, and it takes a process. Yeah, like we said, was 45 minutes down to like 3 minutes, and it's pretty rad. So if you want to go check that out, go to outbound.game or shoot us an inquiry. We're always happy to jump on a call and explore a fit. But team, that's us. Thanks for joining us at Record Breakers again.
Love your work, team. Thank you, Diff. Shout out to Diff for his cameo appearance. That was brilliant.
It's good fun. Awesome.
Cheers, guys.
Thank you, team.
See you.